What up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pickle Juice. It's your boy Zook, as always, being joined by Norway Johnny, and a special guest is joining us tonight. I named him an OG on Instagram, and he himself said he doesn't know if he fits that phrase, but I think he is one of the OGs of the game. Eric from NYC Pickleball, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm excited to do this. We've been talking a bunch just about the game, and we have a lot of conversations whenever something cool or interesting in the game happens. So we thought to do it live. You just got back from vacation, correct?
Yeah, I spent 2 weeks in Bali. It was for a
Oh,
friend's
yeah.
wedding, which on paper sounds amazing. And the first week was great, but the second week was full of stomach bugs and just being holed up in the hotel for 5 days straight. So did manage to find some pickleball courts. I think I played 3 times in the 2 weeks in Bali, so that was great. Got to introduce some new friends there and met up with some local players there. They reached out to us on Instagram when we posted about it. So it was really cool because they had recently hosted the World Pickleball Championship in Bali in September, and they literally finished the courts the day before they were supposed to play, and it was just pure coincidence. It was just great timing for us to go over there.
I love that, and the addiction to the sport has made people very social. Like I've played pickup basketball my whole life. I don't go on vacation seeking the local courts to find local people to play local pickup games with, right? And maybe it's because I don't love the game as much as my addiction to pickleball is, and that this game seems to have a grip over people that everyone now, if you're, playing pickleball a lot and you're going on vacation, it's one of the things that you're seeking out. Obviously, there's some vacations, going in that, you're not going to be able to play. But even myself, I'm getting married on Saturday. I'm going.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I like how I just dropped that as an intro
By
to
the way.
another part of the story. But then 2 days later, I'm going to my honeymoon in the Cayman Islands. And I already know my hotel has pickleball courts. I know Cayman Steve is down there.
Yeah.
I've been talking to him a little bit. And my fiance and me have talked about that. We're there for 8 days. We'll probably do more pickleball than really anything else. I'm down to really play every day, every other day, even for a few hours, because it's beach, it's pool. So this game is so addicting that it's created a social side, maybe from people that weren't even social before they played this game, and now they're going, on vacation, seeking out people. It's a great phenomenon. It's taking people out of their shell, and I'm happy you were able to have as good of a vacation as you can. I know some of the circumstances were tough, but at least you got a little bit of relaxation, a little bit of pickleball, and we are very happy to have you here tonight.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I mean, I think the addiction to the game is one thing, but also I think just knowing that you'll be welcome wherever you go.
Yeah.
You just show up with a paddle, and I've never, and maybe I think that's unique to the sport, and maybe it'll change over time. Who knows? With especially with the supply and demand of the courts, right? But I think if you go in the middle of a day anywhere, you show up with your paddle and you say, "Hey, I'm visiting from New York, just want to play." There's no one who will just be like, "No, you're not welcome here." And
Agreed.
I really hope that stays a staple and just a constant about the sport, forever, because that is so essential to what the sport is.
I love that. And really the whole thesis of why I even came up with this little project, Pickle Juice, in my mind, what is it? What's its mission statement? It's that very essence that there's going to be millions, potentially billions of money poured into this sport. And hopefully it can become as mainstream as every other sport out there. But we know what happens when, money gets involved with things. Sometimes there's greed. You get corporations involved. Something that is very loose can become kind of buttoned up. But what you just said is why everyone falls in love with the game. So once we lose that, kind of the whole house of cards comes crumbling down. I can't sit here and tell you that I'm not more addicted to going to the courts and seeing the people that I know I'm going to see and playing the people that I'm going to play than the actual action of playing pickleball. The whole experience is part of the sport. It's not just what's happening in between the lines. So the point that you bring up about keeping that, I feel like is of the utmost importance for anyone that's trying to advance this game. And you have to really play that fine line of, right, when there is money and there is bigger names at play. Look, I understand certain things can't be done by the seat of your pants and handshake deals, and you may have to act in a certain manner moving forward, but you can always do that and still keep the fun, still keep the essence of, like you said, you can be on a court. It can be a person from Jersey next to a person from North Carolina, next to two people on like their local courts, and it's just people passing through. If I go to my pickup basketball court in my hometown, it's just people from my hometown. It's never rarely anyone saying, "Oh, I'm stopping through from so and so. I thought I would get in a quick 5-on-5." No one really does that. So yeah, what you mentioned is definitely the addicting part of this whole operation.
Yeah,
it's a universal language, right? Like I'm finding it. I found the one club. I don't know if I told you this, dude. Found the one club in all of Norway, and it's only 20 minutes for me. So I'm hitting them up, and they got a tourney before I leave Norway in 2 weeks. So I'm totally signing up. It's cheap. It's like $11 to sign up for the tournament. I'm like,
wow.
Yeah.
What's the cash prize money?
I don't think it's. I think it's like
what's the purse?
That's to keep the lights on. That's just to keep the lights on.
The lights on. I'm like,
no,
I'll play
that's
for honor.
That's funny. That's funny. And what a segue I'll make, because we're talking about not allowing the pro game to take over the very essence of the sport, but we're also obviously huge fans of the pro game, and that is a portion of this. And the major topic that we'll cover today is the PPA MLP rollout of the silver versus gold card. I'll actually bring it up on my share screen, and we have a great tweet from NML Pickleball. If you don't follow NML, legit the first Twitter I followed when I was looking for actual news. Like, is there opinions? Yes, but they also break down news. They have great analysis, great articles. So this is them presenting a chart that shows the PPA MLP Silver Tour card, the PPA MLP Gold Tour card. A little background, if you're watching this or listening in later, is this was sent to a bunch of players over one of the past weekends, and it was really seen as the first move of officially presenting the topic of exclusivity. When the PPA and MLP kind of merged, that was the real question. Are they going to have to stay exclusive to play MLP events? Are they going to be able to bounce around with the hope that MLP thinks that the pull of MLP is enough on those weekends to bring them back? So we kind of got a little bit of our answer here. Quickly, I'll go down what each entails, and then I'll pass it on to you guys. Both have the MLP commitment of 6 events. That's 100% of next year's events being broken down into 2 seasons of 3 in the first half and the second half. PPA minimum event commitment, and this is the first place where the two differ. Silver, 20% with 5 events. Gold, 100% with all 20 events. Let's stop there. Eric, what do you think about that difference in terms of one only having to be there for 20% of the events versus the other being there for 20 weekends? Think of 20 weekends out of 52 weekends is basically 40% of your time. What do you think about that major difference?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like 20 as you said, 20 events is a massive time commitment, travel and all those expenses. And then the big question that comes to my mind is like, what happens if you have to miss one? Or like what are the penalties, right? Injury, XYZ, and then do you still qualify for the 2X, right? And then there's a lot of details that are just kind of not listed and not painted out. And I'm sure a lot of the players are having a lot of questions about those things right now. Like how many did the Johns brothers end up playing this year? Do we have any numbers? Like who played the most number of PPA events this year? And how does that compare with this?
It's interesting you bring that up. Looks like we lost you a little bit there. But speaking to NML, they did have a really good article a few weeks back too. They just have like a user submitted stats article just on where the placements were throughout the year. So they've been kind of compiling their own stats, this one user. And there were some high achieving attendees. I think Anna Bright comes to mind, where she was pushing the envelope. I know both the Johnsons, Georgia, and J-Dub were like high, like, repetition, going to like each and every event, crossing over APP and PPA events. But I think it was a little more exclusive for someone like Ben Johns, like where he was like really honing in, like, like he was really picking his PPA events to go to and whatnot. Zook, we got you back.
Yo, I hit F11 to I thought F11 made the screen
Would
big
close
and
your window.
yeah, and it actually closed my whole computer down. That that was insane. Sorry about that. Let me bring this back up. So yeah, the commitment, especially, that's one of the things I heard from a lot of people this year, a lot of players. They spent a lot of time this year trying to figure out a lot, trying to go between all the tours to as many different events as possible to create those relationships. A big focus for 2023 for a lot of players was more streamlined, maybe less quantity, but more quality in terms of partner or places near them, where to now go back and say, oh my God, 20 events, I have to recommit when I was just literally talking about taking it a step back. Also, not even taking it a step back, but having a flexibility where you only have to maybe map out your first 4 months. And then after 4 months, you can see where you are, and maybe you want to rev it up, or maybe you want to step it back. This is that commitment at the beginning that it may be a hill that is too steep for some to climb by getting the gold tour.
Especially for them to just kind of whip this out at the end of this year, and for like, there's no off season, like the draft is what, in like 2-3 weeks, and then the first event is January, right? So it's like, where do the players have time to make these decisions? And there's so many dominoes that need to fall, right? It's like, okay, well, who's going to end up with the gold card? And then it's all the news kind of needs to trickle out piece by piece. So, I mean, I think, I heard that there's been a lot of players meetings happening, and especially with strong APP players, trying to figure out what do they do, right? Because MLP is such a highlight, but then now they're being cornered into making this decision. And what I'd really like to see is the players to kind of push back and be like, look, like, this is all great. Like, the infrastructure you're creating is essential, but, at the same time, we are the product, right? And so, they gotta come back and I think push back a little bit on some of these things.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Eric. So here's a couple things I'll say real quick. So the workload of 26 combined tournaments that's just a full schedule. Like, you're probably not playing at all.
I forgot about that. I keep saying 20, but you can add the line before, so it's legit. It's 50%. It's legit 50% of your year.
Yeah, it's a full schedule, right? So that's a full plate. But for many of the players that are like, they're looking at this from, hey, I'm going to maximize my revenue this year. That's probably the sweet spot. And I was just mentioning, Zook, when you were off, the NML had a user submitted post a few weeks back talking about some of the payouts and some of the finishes throughout the year, and some of the high attending players were like the Johnsons, J-Dub in Georgia, Anna Bright comes to mind. There's a handful of others that really went aggressive on PPA, APP, and MLP tour stops. And then obviously some of those players that were a little more PPA exclusive might have picked and choose their events a little bit more this year, probably had a little more mainstream sponsorship money where they didn't have to go to as many. And then, of course, you have some other players that maybe are ramping down a little bit. But as far as the full gamut, that's a full year. The other thing I was going to say is, you are it's going to be a really interesting thing, because I think as we go forward, APP, there were some rumblings. I was just talking about it yesterday with Brandon and SecPong. There were some rumblings off some of these calls that APP is really looking at team-based events this year, and they might throw that in the ring.
Yeah, it's a win-win, those team events, because we love them. Like, I know a lot of viewers love them, and the players love them. So it makes perfect sense. The only thing would be is, should APP be trying to scale like that, or should APP be trying to do the opposite, which I don't know exactly what that is, and maybe we'll touch on that a little later. But yeah, you would have to think that APP would have to at least do a little due diligence on the team event type style, even as a way to poach some of the pros or keep some of the pros if that's something that they see that they like to play. But obviously, with the Gold Tour, you having to commit to 20 events. There's some stuff that they're going to give you over the Silver card. So we can take it a little bit further. The PPA event fees being comped up for both sides is very big. We talked to a bunch of pros so far this year that saying gospel about their sponsors, saying the only reason they were able to go to even events is because they got them comped. So that's great. MLP prize money being double for the Gold Tour. That's pretty nice. Another differentiating fact, there's a PPA benefits package. So rental car, when you're at these tournaments, Medicare, Invisalign, that also comes with the gold. 2-year commitment, team exclusivity required. And again, the Gold Tour comes with tour exclusivity. So the main difference is, just to sum it up, is if you commit to playing all 26 events, which is 4 times the PPA minimum commitment of the Silver Tour, you get 2x prize money, you get a benefits package, and you also have to be exclusive to that tour. Johnny, do you think the benefits of what you're getting as extras with the Gold Tour car are enough to make certain pros want to lock themselves up for 50% of the year and exclusively as well?
I would think it's going to be a case-by-case basis. Some players are going to have, if you're looking at medical benefits alone, if they have to pay out of pocket for their own medical benefits, maybe they're on a spouse's benefits if they already have a family at this point. Like, I think that, I do think that more, like, if you're going to give a player the option, I think they're going for the double money. I mean, I think they're going to want to be locked up, because I think that was part of the caveat, right? Is if you didn't want to be locked up, you could still participate. You're just getting, 100% of the money, not the, 2x. So I just think, I think it would be kind of funny not to. The other thing I would say is the APP, obviously for every proposal, there's always the opportunity for a counter proposal from the other leagues. And it does ramp up a little bit of the APP direct competition again. And they were just saying right before Thanksgiving, I think you saw me posting about that on Twitter at my handle there, that there's an imminent broadcast deal. We haven't heard anything else on this yet, but they did mention this, from what I understand, on the APP call as well. I was not on that call, not a player, but they did mention that this imminent broadcast deal is going to bring in some dollars. I was joking, though. I'm in sales. Or I've been in sales. I spent most of my career in sales. I never once say, "Oh yeah, the deal is done," before it's done. It's not something you do. But who knows? And maybe that was just a way of saying, "Hey, don't sign 2-year contract yet because we're going to have money," and they're just putting out that calling card. But if you look at the top PPA talent, they really have a bottleneck on who is getting mainstream marketing dollars, right? Not just pickleball companies, but when you think of Skechers deals, you think of deals with Franklin and some others, right? That's probably going to be the Tysons, the Bens, the, Anna Lee, J-Dub maybe. And those are going to be kind of your top echelon. It's going to be hard to get money outside of that, in the mainstream, if you're not being the one that's anointed by the PPA, right? So if they're saying, "Hey, you're good enough because this is based on marketability," you'll see that in the description there. It's not just your results, but it's also marketability. Well, that might not sit well with players. So they may want to make their own way. If there is a little bit more money with APP coming in now, they might find, "Hey, I can bet on myself, and maybe I don't want to lock in for 2 years." So it's going to definitely be a case-by-case basis, I think, and we still won't know until we hear more about some of these details emerging.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about the Gold Tour card, as I sit here and look at it, one thing I skipped over because I didn't see there was a difference, but there is. The Gold Tour card also comes with 100% PPA appearance fee. So I'm basically, that's really a full-time job with almost like a salary that you're going to 20 events where there's that built-in appearance fee no matter how well you do. Plus, with how well you do, you get double the prize money, which is super nice. I think there is a subset of people out there that are gonna commit to this. The nice thing is these are minimum thresholds, right? It sucks, hey, if you can only do 10 to 12 because you can't get that 2x on the prize money for MLP and PPA. But again, they're not then locked into only doing 5. So we're not going to miss out on, great people that can't commit to 20 but want to do 10 to 15 and want to do it on their own terms and only commit to 5 up front, where it's not like there's a division between these two. I have a sneaky suspicion most people are going to do the Silver Tour card, but a lot of people also were saying the year 2023 was going to be the year they went all in. So for those people that want to be out there every weekend, that want the income of knowing that when they show up, they're going to be handed a check no matter what, it definitely is appetizing. The one comment to also make is they didn't send the gold card to everybody, right? Only to specific people that they deemed worthy.
Yeah, I don't have any details on the specific number, but yeah, no, there is definitely like a line drawn. And I made a joke with one very good-looking male player that we've had on this podcast before.
Wes Burrows?
Might have been. I was like, "You got your gold card, right?" And he said no, and he's got the silver. And I'm like, "Well, your smile is so dang good. They know they don't need to give you Invisalign." So,
yeah, the benefit wouldn't go very far for him. Yeah, I mean, I think. Yeah, I think, like when you think about this as a full-time thing, it's like when you compare it to tennis players, like I don't know exactly how full their schedule is, but we're talking about practice between events. Predominantly tennis players are singles players. They can hire a coach to practice with them on their own time. When most of these are doubles players, both gendered and mixed, that's 2 other people's lives you have to very closely intertwine and integrate into your own, right? So effectively a triangle, like 3 people, yourself, your gendered partner and your mixed partner that you have to work around. So it's like everyone, it's either all or nothing. I feel like if you're going to take the risk to be committed to 20 events, like you're doing it for the upside, right? And if you don't have the upside with a partner that you can practice with consistently, then it's almost like, give me the flexibility, right? Let me pick and choose. Let me kind of have my weekends. So I do feel like we're going to see a lot of the usual suspects. It'll be interesting to see which kind of pairings, decide to kind of collectively be like, okay, we're going to upgrade to the gold card, because you have to do it as a team, I think, in order to make it worth it.
I agree. And you brought up real life, and that's like the crux of this whole thing. You got to see if you can fit those 26 weeks in. That's a lot of travel to not have a hub in an individual sport, like you said, tennis and also golf, where these are happening at different places, right? If you're an NFL player, you live in your the hometown of your team because 8 of your 17 or 9 of your 17 games are at that one place. So even though you're traveling a little bit, you still have a home hub where you can play most of your games. The one thing about pickleball that sticks out to us, but another thing that to bring up when we're talking about the differences and what people are more likely to choose, is we have people of all walks of life, young, old. Like there might just be some people that talent-wise and pure in a vacuum in their deepest thoughts want to commit to 26 weeks, and we all want them to because they're some of the top, that they have families. Like maybe if they were starting from scratch and they were, back in college again and maybe start from the beginning, they would plan lives differently. But some of the people are at points at their life that it just doesn't fit for them in life, even though it really fits for them on the court. And they may end up, even at the end of the year, looking at their schedule and realize that they played 15, 16, 17 events, but were just happy that they were able to make the calls earlier in the week or 2 weeks before if they wanted to go, besides saying, before December 5th, which is, in less than a week, having to sign on a dotted line saying that for next year, I'm giving you half of my weekends. So the thing that we love about the sport is what makes this so interesting. Like if we were talking about the normal sport path where, you know, you start young in the amateur game, you go to college, and then you go to the pros. If we were offering this to a bunch of college kids that spent their whole lives trying to become a professional athlete at their sport, they would all hop on the Gold Tour card because that's what they're working for, and they're going for that full-time gig. But we all know that there's so many good people in this game that just aren't at that point where they have 2 feet fully in. They're either have a family or they're still in school and can't travel this much. So the person that can get the gold card, there has to be so many things in their favor that jive and fit with the style of being able to do that commitment that, you know, I think the general player is going to be maybe a younger player that not fresh out of college, but recently out of college and maybe doesn't have any other job besides pickleball and has decided that 2023 was going to be their mainstream year, that I think the Gold Tour card average age will be a lot lower than the Silver Tour card. That's kind of what my analysis would be on it.
Yeah, unless, well, Matt writes 44, so and we all know that he's how old is Matt?
See,
Sorry,
that's
Matt,
the thing.
but...
There's always going to be ones that stick, and then look, there's people on the other side. There's the older OGs of pickleball that have made this their life, that know that they're already going to be doing the 26, maybe even 30 events a year, that they're also going to hop on it. So I could end up eating those words, and we'll check this back, but sooner than later, and that meaning less than a week, the signups are due, and we're going to know kind of who lines up where. It may not be public news right away, but we'll try and figure it out. And it'll be fun to build a demographic background on who's choosing the gold tours, who's choosing the silver tour. And if we find any common denominator between the people choosing the gold tours. And Eric, you also brought this up, like, are all partners, like if I choose gold, do I have to make you choose gold, right? Like maybe my life, I want to do it, but if you're not willing to make that commitment, am I going to commit to that knowing that I have to find a new partner for like 5 or 6 of the events? So it's
a lot of work.
It may not just be your decision. And again, committing to 5 still allows you to play 20. Yeah. You're just not committed to the 20, and what you lose is that prize payout. So we'll see.
I mean, I think COVID really made a lot of people rethink the value of their time, right? And the flexibility of their time. And you know, this is from someone who I worked in finance for 11 years. And then I decided that I enjoyed pickleball enough to quit my job in August and go full time. So there's a lot of value in having flexibility and being able to be there for, you know, the important moments, right? So I think PPA, you know, and the team that put this out, they might underestimate how valuable that flexibility is. But yeah, as you said, we'll see what happens.
I agree. And Ben, I don't know if I agree with this or disagree. And I say that genuinely, I'm 50-50. Would I like to see if there's gold teammates would they share with silver on the tournaments, those silver players play with them? Sure. But I also think there's some of them that are going to be like, hey, I'm making the commitment. This is what I'm getting. I wouldn't make the commitment if my multiple was only like 1.5, because that's kind of what it becomes. So I'm not going to disagree with you, because I think there'll definitely be individuals that may do this. And it may even be a way to entice the better silver tour players. If you say, hey, I'm making 2x and I can give you an extra, 0.25x, that could be a bargaining chip. I don't know if it will be the mainstay, though, because that's legit the difference between getting the gold card or the silver card. It is that extra payout. But then maybe the people are intrinsically and altruistically better than I'm giving them credit for, and that will happen.
Who knows? It's going to be interesting. And just for perspective, so this was kind of a harken back to the NML article that they had posted, and there was a user called Waggish. So shout out to Waggish, who is apparently just beast mode and puts together some compiles data on their spare time. That's takes a special person. But just the number of competitions entered as of November 9th, and this is the double side, so this doesn't include singles, which I think brings up a good point too, that like Wonder if this drives people towards a little more specialization in their events, like if they know they just have to check the box to hit certain events. So again, remains to be seen what is in the contract details. But some of the top doubles events entered, the quantity as of November 9th. So J.W. Johnson was entered into 25 doubles events as of November 9th, or like completed by November 9th. But that could be mixed, and I believe that's also
so you could divide that by 2, right? And basically say so that's 13 events actually. But then you bring up a good point. Are you committed to, like, if you're a PPA event commitment, are you committed to mixed and just straight doubles? Like, we don't even know how, because that's a huge difference, right? We're talking about the difference. Did JW play 26 on a commitment level, or did he play 13 on a commitment level? It might just be any weekend. I think it's going to be any weekend you show up counts. So no matter if you play 1 or 2, it counts as 1. And maybe, I don't know if that matters. And you know what? It gives you double chances to win that double prize money. So you're still getting that proportionate benefit.
Yeah, I can't imagine you would go travel, stay, pay for the expenses, and only do, one of the event, especially when you have the opportunity, like a JW would have the chance to, potentially triple crown. So
well, think about, like, if your partner gets hurt at the end of the year too, though, like, are you left holding the bag? Who are you scrambling for? Zook and I got our hey, we'll keep our calendars open if they need alternates. But
let's see how deep the pool goes. Yeah,
but
let's see how this gold card.
And we just wanted to give a shout out to Cave and Steve. I don't know when you two did Cave and Steve, but we were just talking about how I'm going to be in your neck of the woods in 2 weeks, so I'll be hitting you up. Going to be playing a bunch of pickleball in Cayman for those 8 days I'm there. Johnny, you talked about this behind the scenes, so I guess we could ask it to Eric, and then we can give our opinions. Is what are they going to have to do with alternates for these types of events with these types of commitments? Like, if you're committed to now 6 MLP events and you get hurt, is there just going to be a set of MLP alternates that if you're the team that gets out, you get to choose from that? Are there going to be ones that are assigned to each team? Where do you stand with alternates? A, what do you think is going to happen? And B, what do you think should happen with alternates?
I imagine there's probably just going to be a pool, almost like a waiver wire type of thing. But I mean, it would be nice in an ideal situation. Honestly, I was thinking about this. In an ideal situation, it would almost be flipped. It'd almost be like 20 MLP events and like 6 tournaments, right? Like, let's get it. Like, I know Rob and Adam have always talked about, like, they think the season should just be MLP type events, and like just get a team season, do that, and then have your one-off sort of like, okay, who's the best of the best. But it'd be great if the alternates could practice with everyone. That just produces a better product, right? But I mean, I think ultimately when when we're talking about, okay, you get 12 premier teams and 12 the second tier teams, and I mean, I guess my biggest question is, like, so there's 2 seasons of 3 events, which is like already confusing enough as it is, and there's like a redraft in between.
And we don't even know when the first draft for the second 12 is happening, just to throw that on top of it as well.
Right. So so you have 3 events. Are all 24 teams playing them at the same time?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying no, but I'm saying for sure.
Yeah.
Based on what people have been saying, we only know that the first 12, the draft is happening. So the 48 again, a 48 are being drafted. So, I could be wrong. I'm saying that with 99.9% certainty. So we're not sure when that second 48 is going to be drafted. This is just my literal throwing it out there. I think the first half of the season is going to be 3 events just for those 12. And then the second 3 events in the second season is going to be officially when they have the Challenger Tour come on. They have the first half of the year during this pickleball craze to see if more great people come out of the woodwork like they did earlier this year, that they'll be able to fill. Plus, college graduates in May, and we know that college pickleball is a big focus for them now, and picking up those players that the summer stands, I think, the best chance to then have that challenger draft. And when they do the second 3 events for the second season, you do the challenger and you do the premier, and it sets up where when we go into the next year, we can then do the relegation and the non-relegation, because we'll at least have that one half of season where teams were able to play. That's just my suspicion on when they do the second one. They may very well 2 weeks after they do the first draft do the second one and run with it. But for now, they've only committed to that first draft of 12 teams, which brings up another point. Don't we have more than 12 ownership groups right now? So I'm interested to say, like,
who gets picked for which one?
There's the less value in having a challenger team if, you know, it's set up like a normal, you know, Premier League than English League Two. If it's set up where it's just in name, and there's obviously better prestige for winning the Premier League, but they're still showing the Challenger Series as much on stream, and they're still the stars in that league. Maybe it doesn't matter too much from the value of team per se, but it seems to me that it could have a difference in value, and that could be significant, especially if you're having 2 owners that just came in now and paid the same amount to get a team. How are you going to tell one, hey, you're starting in the Challenger, and another? So don't we have like 18 already or 16?
So I think we're up to 16. They're going to get up to 24 teams, right? So that's the initial goal. And I'm sure there's got to be a degree of this that's a little bit fluid, only because, you know, like when you actually go forward with like a broadcast deal, right, you have to be nimble. You know, if the broadcast deal, they're like, hey, here's what we'll give you and this is it, or that, you know, like however many events they have, you know, you have to be somewhat nimble. But I do think it's going to be really interesting, because I think the priority is absolutely going to be, so again, just to reiterate, it's supposed to be a promotion relegation league, 2 leagues of 12. And you would have 2/3 or a little bit more, 3/4 of the prize money dedicated to the upper league players. So you have a Premier League and a Challenger League. So that's what we understand now on terms of the details so far. For those of you not following Premier League soccer or don't know what promotion relegation looks like, that means your bottom team or several teams at the end of the year, they are playing to survive, because they want to stay in the top flight league, because they would at the end of the season be dropped down to the lower league, while the top teams or team from the lower league would be promoted for the next season. So it's going to be very, very high stakes. You're going to have very, very high profile ownership. My suspicion would be that you want the high profile ownership on your flagship. You want them drawing in the viewers, and especially the first year, the first season, it's going to be critical for viewership. You're going to want to put your best foot forward. I would imagine there's profit sharing and other things for the entirety of the ownership group. So they're going to all be winning together.
That's
they'll
fair.
all make money. But I do think it's going to be interesting with the players. Hey, if you're a player, you want to play in the top league. You want the eyes on you for marketing, you know, dollars that are out there. You want the top prize pool available to you as well. But it's going to be really interesting, because draft-wise and player pool-wise, you might see some new interesting, like, hey, you know, we have this many players. We might have to make a trade down to the lower league, you know, or we might have to loan a player while someone's hurt or unavailable. You know, if you know, stuff like that. Like, there might be some interesting things that come up. I had made the point yesterday on a call with Brandon and Sekbong that a loan type system, we don't have that a lot in American sports, but they do have it in international football, international soccer. You might loan a player for a period of time and pay cash consideration, right? That's fairly common in the soccer world. And you might have to do stuff like that. So there's a lot to chew on, man. A lot of hypotheticals. We still don't know very much, but just kind of dreaming up what it might look like. That's kind of my suspicion so far.
Yeah, well, you just kind of answered my question anyway, because you brought up the fact that I forgot that owners, yes, they have a team, but they own a percentage of the league. So they're really then not, you know, defined based on what the value of their actual team is. They own 1/24 of every team, technically. So, yeah, if you're smart and you invested in a league, and hey, you may be like cocky, but I'm hoping that these people are smart enough to know that they probably want LeBron James and like Kevin Durant and Tom Brady running around with these Premier League teams to raise the value of the league. So knowing that they have a piece of the league, it probably allows them to put their best foot forward. And maybe some of the ones that are lesser well known in terms of providing brand value for the league will be more likely to say, "Hey, I'll take a challenger league team. The value is still the same as everyone else, and I'll have fun doing what I do." And there might also be the other side, right? People have egos. There may be some people that think that they're more powerful than they are and have more of a sway. So I'm sure we'll hear some stories of some people eagerly saying, "I'll go to the Challenger League." And I'm sure we'll hear some stories of some pushback of them trying to send some people down there and them being like, no, no. But Cayman Steve brings up a good question. Do we know anything about year-over-year team continuity? It's a 2-year commitment. Team exclusivity required.
Yep.
I think there's redrafts though. So
they can drop players.
That's a great point by Cayman Steve, because if your team is if teams get relegated and promoted, but then a whole new draft is happening anyway, you could be on a team that was in the Challenger League and fight hard to get promoted, and then just not get drafted by a team in the Premier League the next year. So, and that's one of the things I didn't. In a guy who loved really everything about MLP, I'm a team sport guy and I love continuity in sports, so I don't see the need for the constant reshuffling drafts and the constant starting over with new teams. So I would love for even them to pick teams and just stick with them. That's why I kind of even like to do the first draft first, allow those teams to do the same. And then while the new people are kind of coming in, besides having to do a reshuffle draft because you want to include these newer people, just save the second draft for the challenger teams until you have that second 48 settled. But Steve, that's my long-winded way of saying we don't have any commitment to that, besides that I think they already said for sure there's one reshuffled draft at some point next year. Again, the reshuffle draft was not
full redraft.
Yeah, it wasn't a full everybody, so it's just getting rid of someone and adding someone new. But that may be the only way you're able to leave, right? Like if you get drafted by a team, if you're not dropped in a reshuffle draft, you may be on that team for 2 years, is kind of how I'm reading this chart. And 2 years is at minimum 6. If they don't even make more events the following year, that's 12. You would like to think they would rev it up the year after that. So probably we're going to see these people on maybe 15 to 20 events on the same team potentially over the next 2 years.
That, and that could be tough, like I think a lot of people felt, a lot of the top players who kind of maybe ended up on teams that weren't top tier, right? Like I think that's why people were saying, oh, JW and, maybe Dylan left MLP to go to Vibe, right? And they were like, they were kind of, no offense to, Florida Smash or whatever, but like maybe JW just didn't feel like there was any chance. Like BLQK was just like top dogs, both, almost fighting for, they won 2 out of 3, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're kind of stuck with the team for 2 years that you feel like definitely doesn't have a chance, especially because the talent cliff, especially for women, it drops off pretty significantly, right? And so like, it makes a huge difference where you are. Like the parity in the NFL doesn't quite exist in pickleball yet. So, I mean, I think, as you said, things are fluid constantly, for better or for worse. And I think there will always be some retinkering, as we go on, which is why I feel like it's almost silly to even like imagine like, oh yeah, like commit to a full year of like 26 events and here's exactly what you get. Like, I don't know. I think the devil's in the details, and like, I think pickleball in general, across everything, pro and amateur, is just always lacking details, and that's just something that really needs to step up.
I agree with that. Another great point to bring up about relegation, just why it will be cool in the pickleball landscape is, when it happens in soccer, you're not finding, I'll talk EPL, and I know these guys aren't in the EPL right now because Ronaldo got dropped, but like, you're not going to see Ronaldo and Messi on whatever Albion, Stokes, whatever getting relegated, right? Because like that's just not how soccer works. And God forbid a star was ever on a team that even had a chance to get relegated in their league, they would force their way out. Like you would never see a star playing in a low league.
Yep.
We may see some of that now. We may see some of the top players be on worser teams to get relegated, and to see stars potentially have to fight their way back and get promoted. And I know I'm not a huge soccer fan, but I know a game that's just as big as a lot of other games that not a lot of people pay attention to is that last promotion game in the second league, a league that no one watches all season round, when there's that final game that whoever wins gets to go up into the Premier League. That's almost just as watched as any other main championship of any league around the world. So we know that people love these promotion stories. They love these relegation stories. Whoever loses this gets sent down. The storyline and the content and the rivalry side of it. Again, another reason why I kind of like steadiness of teams, because when you have people going around, I want there to be a time when we're like, hey, the hard eights and the ranchers, remember when this happened last time and so-and-so was playing so-and-so? I don't want to not be able to say that, because who was on the team last time isn't on the team this time. So now we have rivalries between players that are hopping around teams, and it's tough to follow. But yeah, man, it's like you said, it's fluid, and that's a scary thought, because you're allowed to think worst case scenario, best case scenario with the lack of communication. And sometimes when you sit and think about those two extremes, you can get yourself super excited and then talk yourself into how some of the worst things can happen. But all in all, this was an unbelievable next step, I think, when a lot of people were saying, hey, we've been hearing about new owners, we've been hearing about new topics in the pickleball world. It went kind of quiet for a week or so, and then this dropped. NML had a nice tweet thread about this. Other people started talking about it. MLP and PPA staked their claim. And then as we're coming up to the 8 o'clock hour, I wanted to touch on what the opposing tour did. I'm not sure if it was a complete counter to this or if it was in the works beforehand, but I definitely want to touch on the APP tour pairing with UTR and kind of how we see that partnership either as a response to PPA or MLP, or just that partnership in a vacuum, and how it's going to affect standalone APP now, which kind of is going to have to fight for itself at this point, right?
Yeah. Actually, before we go on to that topic, I wanted to pose kind of a question, right? So everyone's talked about pickleball needing to have a drive to survive moment, right? I think everyone watched that, and it's an interesting case study, right? I think fandom is super critical for something like this sport to develop, and for a bunch of US watchers who like didn't grow up in a family that was like Ferrari or Mercedes or whatever, right? Like to come in and watch this and then like find attachments to either specific teams or, even, race directors or individual racers, right? It's kind of similar where you have the individual character, right? Like Daniel Ricciardo, but then you also have the team dynamic, right? So I think a lot of people kind of attach themselves to, like Ferrari, like Charles and right.
You're talking about me literally from Drive to Survive, and I just fell in love with Charles. Fell in love with him. Yeah.
So you can fall in love with Charles, but you can also fall in love with the dynamic that Charles has with Carlos, right?
But yes.
So I think pickleball actually has a lot of similarities in this way. You can follow like an individual player, but you can also follow like a team dynamic that exists on the court, right? So I guess my question to you is like, okay, who's going to be choosing a team just because LeBron owns it or KD or Kevin Love or whatever? Who's going to pick that versus an individual player versus a pairing, right? Because I think for me, I love watching Riley play. I love what he brings to the game. But watching Annalie and Riley together on the court was probably like the most exciting. I don't know. Maybe it was just who they were dominating, but I think just the way that just their dynamic on the court was so electrifying. Like I could watch both of them play like mixed like all day long, right?
Yeah.
And so I think like that's what I'm much more interested in, and like the interesting pairings and what they bring out in each other, the unexpected pairings, right? That's why nationals was so interesting. All these
Yes.
different pairings that you never don't see together, and so it's such a shame that we're having all these shuffles and redrafts and whatever. But I think they really got to hone in on how do we put together the most interesting players on the court at the same time, both like as an individual personality, but also as a team dynamic, right?
Yeah, there's nothing more dynamic than pairs. Even more so than team sports, the dynamic in pairs is so interesting. Even, even just in life when you're talking about like like pairs, groups of two, there's a dynamic that is a little bit of individual and a little bit of group mentality that when you have to legit carry 50% of the weight and the other person's legit carrying 50% of the weight, it's such a interesting thing. To answer your question, and it's a really good one because when the owners were dropped, I would have told you that the answer was like people are watching for LeBron James. I slowly realized that as a pragmatic pickleball fanatic myself, I don't think a lot of LeBron James's fans are rooting or watching his pickleball team at this point. Like, I don't think the game is there at this point, and people are going to become that much fans of it without playing it yet. That I've done a 180 because it lends itself now to exactly what you said. To that, the people that are watching are the fanatics that watch all the time, that know the players. It's really cool in that sense of where it's small, but everyone that watches is knowledgeable because everyone that's watching is watching. So yeah, I've gone to you now where it's I found over this year the people that I love, and when I see those people are going to be on, like if I have it on another screen and I'm listening and I'm watching at work and they say that these people are now going to be shit, like I go and I watch now. So I'm all about the hey, I thought it was going to be the LeBrons and the Kevin Durant's to legit what you said. Like they need to get a series out there that shows these people off because that's how people are going to ultimately choose. Another difference but similarity to F1 and where they would have to be careful in having a drive to survive moment is they would just have to put these people in a different light where one of the reasons people like Drive to Survive or one of the reasons people like Hard Knocks is because we're watching athletes do things that we can't do and we think they're like superheroes. We would have to throw that out the window for a Drive to Survive about pickleball, and we'd have to do the exact opposite. We'd want to like take them home to show their family life. We'd want to like take them here, take them there, and kind of not show off how we're like the other things show off how these people are different than us, how they're these top athletes with all these money and these celebrities, where for pickleball, it should be like, who do you identify with? Whose story do you know? Like, who went to college and got this degree and then worked at this finance company and is now, playing pickleball? Because it's all that stuff where we can start seeing each other in these pros. And I think that's how people are going to identify. You're going to find the pros that went to the same colleges as you. You're going to find the pros that live near you. Hey, I'm not if I found a pickleball pro that was a Steelers fan, they would immediately shoot up to like top 10 in my like, and it's just stuff like that, right? Like it's just in an individual / partner sport. It's just getting to like those people. And when you have a team sport, you only have to show off a few people, or it doesn't matter because people come and go, right? And it's the team, right? It's like I love the Steelers regardless who's on them. When you have this individual sport, it's really on the tour to show it off so people can pick and choose who they want to watch because that's what ultimately is going to get them to stick around. Like you said, the next time that partnership is ever, playing again, you're going to have a tough time being scheduled to do anything else, right, than sitting in front of your computer and watching them play again.
Cam and Steve brought up a good point too about the regions,
yes.
right? Like regional based teams. So not to run in too much there, but
I
think
can,
that was a good one too.
Yeah, I could just say just from talking to Brooks that they want to start that and they want to let the teams do that in the next few years. They want the owners to find their own hubs based on where they are, based on where some of their players are, and kind of be responsible for building that out. I'm sure it will have some type of live-like thing where I know live the golf, if you're like on the team, you get like 25%. So probably if you go to whatever home base you have. The MLP will help you, buy a home base and stuff like that, and then you'll probably be able to keep some of the
Talk
revenue.
about a way to align with the team, though, right? Like you said. Like
100%,
you're
100%.
That's
Yeah,
my point behind it. It's
yeah.
That's just
My
another
bad.
way. So all roads lead to home there. So yeah.
If there was if they just stuck like the Florida Smash, if I lived in Florida, that would be an automatic, easy, like, I don't know if I'm going to end with them being my favorite team, but as I look through the team names, that's sticking out to me, right? If there was a New York anyone, they would be the first team I would look at the roster and give the chance to say, hey, are there people? And are there people I like? And if there was people I'm on the fence about, I'm more likely to look at them in a much lighter light if they were on the team with New York. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. Cayman, Steve, do you envision some teams foregoing raw talent for team chemistry? 110%. I know some of the players have already said that's going to be a big thing with the team atmosphere, that even some of the picks may look weird, but then you'll have to see who that team picked in a prior round and be like, hey, this wasn't the best person available, but this person plays with the person they drafted in the last round really well. So we'll see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like,
I
think just like, left side, right side players, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're not gonna pick the pure talent duper rating just because they're there. You're like, I already have 2 left side players. I got to find the next best right side player. So
exactly, you have someone like Case Keenum, and I'm not Case Keenum,
the quarterback,
yeah. And he said,
Christian
yeah, I know. I call him Case Keenum, and he likes that I call him Case Keenum because I was in the chat the first time he ever played. But he only practices on the right side now, and he loves practicing on that right side. So he's someone who, even though if you made a list of the top 50 players, he may slot in at like, I don't know what pick. Like if you just made a big board, he may be like the 40th overall best player. He may be picked a lot higher than that because his skill of being good on the right side is one that maybe other people aren't focusing on. So I really think based on who you pick early, you'll get a sense of who they want to play with and what style of player that they like, that later in the rounds, we're going to see a lot more people go off big board and off rankings because of what Steve said, that you're putting together a team now. It's not this person's a 95 rating and that person's a 95 rating, and together they're a 190 rating. That may be the case, but you may be able to put 280 players together that instead of being a 160, they turn into like a 180 just because of how they play together and they fill each other's holes. So I think a lot of these, again, I'm not going to say I think a lot of these because I don't know how many of these ownership groups are actually looking at the looking into who people play with and looking at the stats. But it would be very smart of them to get in the ear of the first player that they pick on that draft night and have that person help them out with what do you see about these other players? Who do you feel comfortable with playing the most?
That's what the GM should be, right? That's
yeah.
What the GM should be doing all
that.
100%.
So I don't know why Adam Stone doesn't have a job yet.
and I think that's the next wave, right? Because I don't think the owners are going to do it. And we saw with Caitlin Kerr, pickleball chick, getting that with Tom Brady and Kim Kleister's team, right? Every single team is going to need one of those. So I'm very interested. I think that's the next wave of announcements. The next wave of announcements is going to be this so-and-so as this GM, so-and-so as this GM. And I hope, us three are just sitting here. Ben's in the chat. Cayman Steve's in the chat.
I was going to say, Adam.
There's people that have
for GM, but he should just be a consultant for all the GMs and make a salary off of everyone. He'd be brilliant to do that, I think he'd make bank. So
yeah.
If I had to draft, my first pick would be Megan Fudge, and my second pick would be Brandon and Segpong. My third pick would be.
So regardless of draft position.
My third pick would be Christian Keenum, and my fourth pick would be Lee Whitwell.
Those are all our favorite people, man.
Well,
the winning team.
With Lee and Christian, I'm playing that strictly there. They can kind of play that right side, and play it well. That hopefully that meshes, because I'm telling you, a lot of these, especially on the male side, this is why Zook is not a GM.
Yeah.
All right.
Dude,
We've been
also
cut
out of
off.
time, my man. I know.
Yeah, 8:01. This was a
We didn't
great
get to the
conversation. It was picks by emotion. Always picks by emotion. always picks by emotion. But no, this is great. We'll be having Eric on a bunch. He knows he has an open invitation whenever he wants to come on Tuesday. As you know, Tuesday is more just a laid back, talking more about the pickleball scene. Thursday, Instagram Live. Me and Johnny are going to be joined on Thursday by the TCU pickleball team, which is a lot of fun. They came in third or fourth. They lost, I don't know which one. They lost in the semifinals of the Duper Collegiate College Tournament. Going to get the chance to talk to them after we talk to Utah Tech and UNC. So before we cut this off, Eric, is there anything going on for NYC Pickleball coming up soon, or is you revving up for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit is 2023. I mean, we're dropping some new merch sometime soon. There's a little preview. Oh, that's wrong. We got a little NYC Pickleball Metro
Oh,
card
yo,
going on.
that's sick. That's a
Yeah.
yo. I'm New York City, not born and raised, but lived there for 6 years and went to college there. So the Metro
yeah.
card is a staple of my wallet. I think
And
I still have like 7 in my wallet.
And it's going out of commission in 2024,
I
right?
know. I know.
This is homage to that. So look out for that. And then I think we're working on. I mean, everyone's trying to figure out indoor solutions, and you know we are too. We're talking to some different gyms, and yeah, we just want to get more consistent play going on. And like I think for us, we want to host things that people will want to go to,
Yes.
and not just be like, hey, here's a court, jump on. It's like, hey, let's make this unique and what people want. So that, yeah, keep a lookout. 2023 we'll be coming in with some new stuff.
That's dope, and it's good. The Knights of DGen, big New York City contingent, and a lot of people that just hit me up every single day being like, I'm looking for places to play. I don't know the New York City pickleball scene that well because I'm just right outside, and if I can, I stay out. But yeah, we'll definitely be talking a lot about future events in this area as we rev it up. But Johnny, Eric, thank you guys so much. Johnny, I'll see you on Thursday. Eric, as I said, Tuesday, whenever you want to hop in. You know how to find me on Discord, but have a wonderful night, guys.
All right. Take
Dude,
care.
Eric, thanks, my man. Pleasure.
Yeah, good to meet you. Bye.